I believe it's about men and children.
Men and their children.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think any women are in this movie? I
Who
don't
knows?
know. Pre-2010, who knows what?
Were women in movies pre-2010?
It felt that way sometimes. Welcome back to the Beaming Fast Forward podcast. My name is Charlie Jake Sanchez.
My name is Kat Solko.
I have seen a lot of movies.
I have not.
And I have seen more and more movies that I have seen in the past 4 months than I've rewatched a lot of movies at this point, is what I'm trying to say. I have rewatched a lot of movies. Mm-hmm. So we are
because
here.
Because of me.
That's right. And I'm happy to. It's exciting. I love to rewatch my favorite movies. What are you going to do? And so we are here to watch and discuss one of my favorite movies of all time. I often say that Chinatown is my favorite old movie,
yes,
and Children of Men is my favorite new movie.
Right. Okay. Yes, you've said that, and I still don't know anything about it.
Okay, great. Yeah. Do you know who directed it?
No.
Oh, this is so cool.
I don't know who's in it.
You do know the director.
Do I like the director?
You do like the director. I think you like the director.
Great.
Yeah.
I believe you. I believe it's about men and children.
Men and their children.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think any women are in this movie? I don't
know.
Who knows? Pre-2010, who knows what?
Were women in movies pre-2010?
It felt that way sometimes.
That's weird. All right.
So, this movie came out in 2006. I won't say
Why
too much
is it
more.
your favorite movie? Can you say without spoiling it?
Yes. I can say the themes of the movie, as well as the way it is directed, shot, and executed, is some of the most astonishing stuff I've ever seen.
Cool.
That's it.
All right, cool.
All right. And we will be back shortly to talk about Children of Men, who is directed by somebody.
Someone we like.
Someone we
Can't
like.
wait.
And we'll be back soon. And we are back.
I had no idea what I was getting into.
More women than you thought.
Holy crap, look at all the women in this movie.
At least two.
At least two.
Two or three? Three?
Yeah. One didn't speak.
4. There was a Russian one. Or
I can't remember I don't know what language she spoke.
Sure.
She was cool.
She was awesome.
Wow. This was a intense. Well, so the reason that we watched this movie was because we've been on a Handmaid's Tale binge, and we were watching Handmaid's Tale, and then we were going to watch a movie, and he said, can we watch a movie that's like similar? And I said, hell yeah, I love a Handmaid's Tale. In the way that I love hammering my hand over and over again till I cry. And
pain. You enjoy pain.
I do. And I
Through media.
Freaks. Perverts. And I really like this movie. I liked this movie a lot. I can understand why it's your favorite. It's fantastic.
So this movie is directed by Alfonso Cuarón.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that.
Is directed after he did Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Still remains my favorite of the Harry Potter movies.
Gotcha.
It's the best directed of the Harry Potters.
Interesting.
I think so.
We can discuss it.
Yeah, if you're gonna want to say your opinion on camera, I would love to have it.
I don't know if I want to voice that out loud. Mostly because I don't have one.
Really? You don't have a favorite Harry Potter?
Prisoner of Azkaban is not my favorite Harry Potter movie.
Okay.
But I don't know about if that's direction-wise or if it's just the story. I think I find time travel stories a little bit tedious.
Well, sure. I think once it gets into that time travel section, it is fun. I like the Dumbledore
It was
stuff.
the first of the spooky era of Harry Potter movies.
I think it's
he
my
really
favorite
does a spooky
book, though, is the thing. Like, I really like that book a lot. I love Sirius Black as the character, as a concept. Like, this idea of this big... Anyway, we're talking about Children of Men.
Children of
Guys, Children of Men.
Stop making us talk about Harry Potter.
So, released in 2006, Children of Men, starring Clive Owen.
Clive Owen.
The
Love Clive Owen.
movie is about the summary, the synopsis.
Yeah, should I do it?
Is
Hold on.
Can I have my spot back, please?
Please. Move. There he is. Okay, go. Move your body. He's so heavy and dense. Okay.
Children of Men.
Yes.
The synopsis of this movie, I'll just run through it real quick.
I'm not worthy.
You take a long time.
I'll do it quickly. Children of Men is a dystopian story set in the near future where humanity has become infertile. And the last baby to be born ever was 18-something years ago.
In 2009.
In 2009. So our protagonist is this man who's kind of an alcoholic. I don't know what he does for work. And he is asked by his ex-wife, who's now a vigilante activist, who was always an activist, but I think vigilante style now, to get transport papers to help a girl reach the coast of Britain. Every other country in the world is dead or dying, like in a bad way. Everyone's dying.
War, famine, everything.
Yeah. And so...
But we are seeing that through propagandic lens. Like we are seeing that through...
And we're in Britain, and they've closed their borders.
Yeah.
And they have a huge refugee problem and hate refugees. They do not want them.
Illegal immigrants, yeah.
So he gets So he gets the transit papers to take the girl to the coast. He has to go with her. That's the stipulation. And is betrayed by the vigilante group, him and his ex. She gets killed. He has to take the girl and their friend rogue. And to get to the coast, they have to get themselves captured and put into a refugee camp. And there's a lot of factions. The main reason that the girl needs to flee is that she is pregnant.
Yes, she's the first.
She's the first pregnant woman known to man
years,
in the last 2
years,
decades.
Yeah.
So they are trying to get her to a group called the Human Project, who are trying to solve infertility in a secret because everyone wants to, what?
People would use the baby for whatever political reasons.
Every political reason under the book. So he gets her there. Through a lot of trials and tribulations, he gets her to the coast in a very sacrificial way, dies, and then she gets to the Human Project with her baby.
Yep.
See? I was so fast.
Nice. Okay. So the movie opens with a long take of, you find out baby Diego is the child.
Baby Diego, who's 18-something years old.
He was he's the youngest person on Earth, and he has tragically passed away. And
been stabbed.
Been stabbed to death, and then an angry mob killed the assassin, whatever.
Yeah.
And so people are in mourning all across the city, and Clive Owen's just buying his fucking coffee. And and as Michael Caine says later, like, I'm glad you don't take cream and sugar.
Yeah, otherwise you'd be dead.
Shortly after that, the coffee shop is bombed.
Bombed by, you're not sure if it's a vigilante group or the government.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating setup of what happens to the world if we can't have babies anymore.
There's no hope.
If there's literally no hope of humanity ever continuing on.
What happens?
What do people do with their time? Like, what is the point? It's very like if nihilism was put into practice, like nothing matters. And it's a weird thing because even people who like we want to have children, but like some people don't.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a reason for everyone to live.
Sure.
But if no one can have children and there is no future generation, that is a crazy idea.
Yeah, he's like he is. I mean, you find out later in the movie that he and his ex-wife lost a son to the flu pandemic in 2008. And so you meet him, and he's ordering the black coffee, goes out, and is putting his
whiskey
booze into it. And so he's a drunk.
He's a drunk.
He's
what does he do for work?
I don't know. He's working in an office, some sort of office.
I thought he was a policeman or a detective, but it's not that. It's just like
he's
a
dressed
mundane,
like a detective, but he's
he's doing all the detective things. He's smoking, he's drinking in his coffee, he's haggard, his tie looks terrible.
Yeah.
All detective things.
Clive Owen, one of the great noir actors who's
Yeah.
maybe never been in a noir. I can't remember. But
I love a dystopian story.
Me too.
I love it.
Me
Like
too.
as soon as it started, I was like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
cool.
To me, this is the dystopian story. It's an amalgamation of. I mean, it was based on a book about humanity going infertile, essentially. But liberties were taken. But it takes from so many dystopian ideas.
Yeah.
Music. It takes from literature. It takes from art. It takes from everything.
Yeah.
To make this amalgamation of, what the stakes would be, what the reality would feel like.
Yeah, what would people turn into? Like, I didn't really think about the border thing. Like, if there was only one, like, last bastion of civilization, because everything else had devolved into chaos and anarchy, and it happened to be this tiniest island in the world, tiniest country in the world, and everyone was trying to flock to it. And, like, then over time, you would get anti-refugee propaganda. You would get like the borders shut down. You would get
It doesn't
camps.
even take that. We are living in it right now.
Yeah, yeah.
There's the election was just a month ago, and one of the parties, the winning party, ran on a platform of deporting all the illegal immigrants. And there's estimates of over 20 million people in this country. What does that look like?
Yeah.
It looks a lot like this.
But it's also just like demonizing an amorphous group of people,
of course,
that aren't human if you lump them all together as evil people.
The great turn of this movie is that this girl is pregnant and she is a Fuji. She is a refugee. She is an illegal immigrant. And there's that constant propaganda video of like, I'm a nanny, I'm your neighbor, I'm your this.
They're all illegal immigrants. Report them. Report them. Like, they're not people. They're illegal immigrants. And we just lived through an entire election cycle of nothing but those kinds of ads.
And now these are taken to the extreme. You see throughout the entire movie these cages where these people are being rounded up. And later on in the movie, you see these extreme forms of torture that these people in the cages are being forced in at the actual refugee camp. You see the imagery of like Abu Ghraib or Guantanamo.
Yeah.
These things that are
firing squads,
everything that
public executions.
When you take something like that and you draw it out to its natural conclusion, what does it look like?
Right.
And it's easier to kill these people than it is to shelter them.
100%.
And so. Imagery of the Holocaust, imagery of current affairs, everything. It's a spectacular execution.
It does
of an
what
idea.
my favorite dystopian or apocalyptic movies do, which is like zoom in on one story in this world and make it so grounded in reality. I think The Hunger Games was like the first one that I really like. It took me by surprise because every other one was kind of a little fantastical, and The Hunger Games was like it zoomed in on what a poor community. The first movie, what a poor community who's been impoverished for decades looks like, and like what the emotional and physical and mental repercussions of children fighting the death does to a community, does to a people and a society. And like that was so cool for me as a child as a teenager to read about and like explore. And then this is kind of the next graduation of that idea, which is like you should make these kinds of movies as grounded as possible. That's how you get the message across.
Well, it becomes always relevant.
Yeah.
It becomes constantly relevant. And you watch something like Blade Runner and it's set in 2019. Blade Runner famously set in 2019. And you get to 2019 and it's like, well, it doesn't quite look like Blade Runner. There's some of the ideas are there and we'll get there maybe in 30 years or something.
Sure.
But this one feels, it feels, every time I watch this movie, it feels like it could be the year that the women start going infertile. Basically, like
Right.
it feels like it's 2009.
Totally, yeah.
Every time I watch this, it feels like it could be that. And when I first watched this, it was 2006.
And that's
And
an interesting.
so-
I was thinking about that because that's an interesting thing for the writer and director to do. Is like, yeah, this isn't your reality yet, but wait 3 years.
Yeah.
What if the women
Yeah.
start going infertile?
Yeah.
Well, like, what if? It's interesting. They said it was a women's infertility,
I
or
believe so. It was.
it's just an interesting little wrinkle. But
Yeah.
but yeah, what does that look like? It's slow. Like there's the monologue with the amazing actor. I don't know her name. Buddhist?
Mhm.
Is she a Buddhist?
Yeah.
Where she was like, yeah, it started with like 3 miscarriages in 1 week. And then all of a sudden there were no scheduled pregnancies in the next 6 months. And like all of that slowly but surely.
All right, we had a break for like 3 hours because our repairman came to
He
install
installed a lot of things that we needed.
And so yeah, as you can see, there is night outside of Kat's window there. And
Hours have passed.
hours have passed.
Anyway.
But we know exactly where we were.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the butt of what was the word you were using?
But Buena Vista?
Sure.
Buena Vista?
Yeah, sure.
I'm saying it wrong.
Anyway,
I know I'm saying it
her
wrong.
name is Miriam.
Yeah,
in the
Miriam.
movie.
God.
And her name,
No, Bug. No.
he's been cooped up for 3+ hours, and now he wants to play. Which it's on us. We own him. He's ours. So,
Amen. That's going
was
to peak on the
loud.
microphone. Jesus Christ, Bug. So I was saying that about how she noticed that the miscarriages were happening
Mm-hmm.
more frequently, and then all of a sudden there was no like scheduled births
Yeah.
in the next few months, and then all of a sudden there were no babies. Basically, my point being that I love when people just like come up with a premise and extrapolate.
Yeah.
So like that's I think why I love The Handmaid's Tale so much. It's like, okay, say for instance, the fertility rates are dropping drastically. What would people do? And it would be like what I noticed in this movie, the first like background kind of details was like there was a sign that said avoiding fertility tests is a crime.
Yeah.
And it also, that sign seemed old, which means like the first step was everyone had to get tested to see if they
Right.
were fertile. And avoiding it, if you didn't want to have kids, that wasn't an option. Like you had to be tested if you were fertile. Like similar to The Handmaid's Tale, like, okay, the fertile people are placed in these programs. If you are a member of the like Christo-fascist
Yeah.
like system that was implemented, then you get the nice houses, you get the positions of power. Everyone else is labeled like a heretic or whatever. So what I really enjoyed about that first opening like snapshot was how many details were just in the background
Yeah.
and like gave you hints of like how it got to this place. Also, all the ads for the government assisted
great.
suicide.
Yeah. Oh, Quietus.
Quietus.
And then,
So good.
the first time I've ever seen it is like 2,000 to your next of kin for taking the pill, getting rid of a problem that the government doesn't want. Basically, they don't have the resources for people. So giving 2,000 to your next of kin as a incentive to kill yourself was crazy.
Yeah.
All of the graffiti and everything all over the walls. The last one to die, turn the light out or whatever, like in the background.
I didn't even see that. That's so
Some
cool.
of my favorite stuff that if you're paying attention, on your first watch through, it was good that you were able to catch these little things. The fertility testing thing is like, yeah, that may have been early, but it does feel like perhaps something that they would continue. Like,
Sure, I mean,
as a
they're continually testing,
mandatory-
but I think, overall the consensus seems to be like,
It's
This
we're
is the
about to wrap
reality.
it up here.
Yeah.
Like humanity is done. It's
that
close
there's
to
really
getting
no
done.
point
Yeah.
trying again.
Yeah, Quran is quoted as saying none of this was fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, we just took, like I was saying earlier, just took what was happening and take it to its natural conclusions.
Yeah, exactly.
And that healer character, Miriam, it's Pam Ferris.
Yeah.
And Pam
She
Ferris,
was the mean lady in Matilda.
she was Trunchbull from Matilda.
Madam
and she was
Trunchbull.
Aunt Marge in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of
Oh,
Azkaban.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't even put that together.
So
Whoa.
the Trunchbull thing is crazy, though. I'm shocked that you were like the mean lady. I was like, that is Principal Trunchbull.
All I remember was Miss Honey.
Oh, Miss Honey.
Listen. We have the same type in men and women.
And so
I couldn't help but notice the Last of Us parallels.
well, yeah, I mean, this is 2006. It's like
A man assigned to traveling a young woman who's has something special with her that will save the world. Also, and I don't know if you noticed this, very strong Babylon AD parallels.
That's right. Oh my god. Oh my.
A movie we're gonna do on the podcast
On the
eventually.
podcast? That's gonna be
Have you
special.
not
That's
seen
gonna be real
Babylon
special.
AD?
No.
See? One of mine.
When we talked, we had a discussion early on in our relationship, and Children of Men and Babylon AD were like two sides of the same coin. I was like trying to tell you about this movie.
I didn't
You
remember
don't
that.
remember this at all.
No.
Yeah, and I bought you a poster of
Yes.
Babylon AD because of that conversation.
One of his first gifts to me was a Babylon AD poster because he knows how much I had a crush on Vin Diesel. So there's a little bit about me.
Jimon Hansu,
But it's
Vin
the same
Diesel.
story. Essentially, no spoilers. The premise is that Vin Diesel is tasked with transporting a very special young woman across a great distance to save the world.
You know, this movie is part of the reason why I kind of like laugh it off about this being one of my favorite movies of the modern era, 21st century, is that it's kind of like one of the first movies they teach you in film school. I talked to our friend Sarah, was just like, oh yeah, that movie. Yeah. First year of film school was like, oh my God, people
Really?
shut up about that movie.
Well, yeah.
And so it's really interesting because, you know, this movie is known for some of the greatest camera work of all time. We consider it for
It was so subtle, but I did notice eventually that there was probably not actually, but like very long takes.
Yeah. And so, but on top of that, to me, after watching it this time through, it is like the greatest production design of all time, perhaps. Like the way that they turn, you know, I think it's Eastern London, a lot of it Eastern London, into this like hellscape.
Yeah, huge blocks of sets.
Quran, it's so funny because if somebody else said this, it would be like problematic, but he's quoted as saying, make it more Mexican. The whole time he was shooting, he was like, make it more Mexican.
He's allowed.
Make the set more Mexican.
That's so funny.
But yeah, the production design is unbelievable.
There was a thing I read recently about how if there was like a nuclear fallout in London or in England, there's a what's it called?
Contingency?
There's a contingency plan in the event of a nuclear fallout that the art will be protected before the greater population. And when they go to it looked like a government building.
Yeah, but it's the Ark of the Arts.
Got it.
That's why earlier on, sorry to use that specific phrase, but they talk about it with, I think he's talking to Jasper maybe, and he's just like something with what's his name in the Ark of the Arts. And it's specifically mentioned that that's the
like
place
Noah's Ark.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
In case anyone survives and wants to have art again.
Michelangelo's David and
Guernica.
And I think there's another really famous painting.
There's a floating pig in the background?
The floating pig is a reference to Pink Floyd.
Oh.
The smokestacks and the floating pig are visual from one of their records.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So also Ed Westwick.
Yes, Ed Westwick.
I
He was
noticed.
the son
I recognize Ed Westwick from his little this part of his face.
Literally, the shot is from here, and you see just his.
He has a very distinct nose jawline combo.
And you know, when you said that, I said, "Are you sure that's Ed Westwick?" And then now I realize that I have no idea who Ed Westwick is. Like I've never. I don't have no, but visually I don't have the same.
Well, he's not making the same face, which is
To be fair, he's kind of making that face.
I mean, I think part of it's just his face. Cool cameo for Ed Westwick.
Really
Very
cool,
young Ed Westwick.
You know, that the youth are so disaffected that
they're just
mindlessly tapping away on whatever game or whatever communication device.
so true to today.
He's Alex. Alex. It's so funny. The camera moves, like they've just abducted him and they've had the conversation. Julian has talked to him about, helping them. And then they take him away. He refuses. They take him away. And the camera's just slowly going back the whole time. And she's like, you know that sound of your ears? That's your ear cells dying. Enjoy it while it lasts. And the camera's just slowly coming back. And it's all like handheld camera.
Yeah, it
a
feels
majority
that way.
of the movie. But it's so stable. It's so nice. I mean, I shot on film, I assume. I didn't do research on that. It was 2006. I don't think
Probably film.
Yeah. And just beautifully done. I love some of that stuff. It's my favorite. I think it's my favorite camera operating or cinematography of any movie.
I always like a long shot, even if it's technically like 6 shots.
It is, yes.
Hidden
That's
within
correct.
each other to make it feel like a long
Sorry
shot.
to bum anyone out, but yes, a lot of those long takes
But
are...
some of them aren't. Like some of them are
Yeah.
just long takes, and I really like that. I always appreciate when they do that.
Well, so the long shot in the car when they're being attacked on the road by all those people, and that was it's so funny. He had talked to Chivo, his longtime cinematographer, Emmanuel Lubezki, about how they were going to shot that. He said, like, it's impossible. He was like, okay, cool. We'll just green screen it. And he was like, fuck that. I'll quit right now if you green screen this. Da, da, da. So he got together with his cinematographer and inventor, Gary Thielges. And they invented this thing they called on the set the doggy cam, that was essentially like this big honking car, almost like a Mad Max bunch of metal, and the camera was able to rotate, and the actors would they would like move down so they didn't hit their head on anything, and then they would move up whenever they were on screen, and it was just rotating.
I love that.
And I think they were above the car, like controlling it with remote controls.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's actually mostly practical.
Mostly practical. I believe they said in the end it's 5 shots stitched together or something like that. But yeah, it looks incredibly seamless. So he goes to visit Michael Caine, and it enters. Does it enter with Ruby Tuesday, or what song is playing?
Because I know what song's actually playing. He dies during Ruby Tuesday. Yeah,
but I can't remember if it's introed with Ruby Tuesday. But you see, the production design of all of the newspaper clippings. Yeah. And his wife was tortured, and now she's mute, and
she was tortured.
Yeah, it said investigation of photojournalist by MI5, like investigation of torture by MI5 for the photojournalist. Yeah.
Why?
Because she was trying to investigate the government, and that's the implication. And so now she is mute and doesn't and completely catatonic. Yeah. Because of whatever they did to her.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Because I was
it lingers on that right before it cuts to her in reverse.
I thought she was just sad about her grandbaby. No. I love that character. You know what I love about movies like this is that they hire all of these amazing actors that die within 10 minutes of them arriving on screen. Michael Caine obviously is one of the longest running in the movie, but it's something I like about certain movies where no one's safe based on their celebrity.
Well, Julianne Moore, 28 minutes in the movie, is dead.
Exactly, which is it's just a great, like, oh, I don't know where this is going. Okay, cool. Where is it going? Like, storytelling device. Yeah. It's what I noticed in, do you ever see Contagion?
I haven't seen Contagion. I've seen bits and pieces of Contagion.
I saw Contagion 3 months into the pandemic. That was not the right time to watch that movie.
No, it was. It was the same way that I watched, what's it called? Station 11. What was it, in 2021 when we were coming out of it? But, we were on the way out.
But yeah, all of those, 99% of those, well, spoiler alert, it's the same premise.
Contagion.
Yeah. So then they introduce Michael Caine, and you're like, oh, okay, Michael Caine. And he has like 2 big scenes. I love that, you know? And I also love that it's so grounded in like a real, how would someone survive? They would grow pot and they would sell it to the refugees.
Yeah.
Like, that's how someone
Using
would survive.
a guard, and the guards would be in on it, and there would all be all this like underground trade and black market stuff.
Yeah. And it also...
Strawberry cough, man.
And it also ties it very naturally into his personality and his thesis on life, which is like explained later on. The you know, they had a kid by chance, and then he died by chance, and it's all chance.
Theo's
and it's
faith
like
lost out to chance.
Yeah. Really cool theme or thesis idea that is totally makes sense coming from a hippie.
That's
you know?
That's exactly what I that when you asked like why is this your favorite movie, it's because of things like that, because of these grand ideas that are distilled into this little small human story.
Yeah.
And what I found this time, and we'll get, sorry, I don't mean to jump around, but the Theo arc, and Clive Owen is quoted as saying like he didn't get the character before they started filming, and he just was like, I'm going to trust Alfonso to take me where I need to go. But that idea of this character who is so cynical, and there's that one little moment that I was like, whoa, I never noticed how vulnerable that moment was, where they're at the school and she just told the story about the babies when they stopped coming into the delivery room and everything, and she said I was there at the end. He says, well, you'll be there at the beginning. Or you're there at the beginning. And I was just so touched by that idea, you know, those little moments where he is so cynical, but he was that hopeful activist. He did have faith in the work they were doing.
Yeah.
And for him to keep doing what he's doing in that moment, it's like he was always supposed to be there. He was always supposed to transport this woman. Very biblical, obviously, with everything they're going for. You know,
totally.
She's there. She's in the barn when she shows him her belly.
Oh yeah, crazy cool imagery.
Yeah, it's just really amazing with the cows and everything. All those ideas packed into one is what makes it, and told in such short amount of time, 1 hour and 49 minutes.
Really,
those little things of, like I said, that one shot that just tracks over the newspaper clippings. And you get to, like, you know, you see Julian and
the baby.
You see he was a cartoonist, Jasper was, and he had the stork, you know, getting hit by a bomb or something. It's just like all that stuff told in, you know, 8-second tracking shot is just really lovely.
Yeah. That's cool too. I didn't really. It's a movie that merits watching again just to look at the background shots.
A lot of detail.
I was trying to absorb everything at once because, I had no context for this movie whatsoever.
Yeah. So Jasper and him, the joke about the stork.
There's the betrayal, which is interesting in that, like, everyone has their own agenda for using what you find out is the first pregnancy again. And I found it, like, almost yada yada in the way that they bring in the fish's agenda, but it's just sort of the facts of the matter, which is they would never allow the first baby to be from a refugee.
Right.
They would change the narrative, and all the refugees would still be fucked, and it would not change the state of, you know, the crisis right now. So we're definitely going to need this baby. And we're going to need to control the narrative around it and tell the world what we know and what we know to be true. I thought that there were certain times in this movie where it was a little heavy-handed.
Yep.
Specifically the reveal that they killed Julian.
Yes.
And he's overhearing them, and they're like, yeah, we killed Julian because of this, this, and this.
That's
why it's like,
nose.
why would you be talking about it like this? Like,
I agree.
You all know the plan. You were going to kill Julian. You were going to betray her. That's the plan.
So that's a great example of what I was talking about, that story being told and that tracking of like all that stuff.
Yeah.
This like show don't tell thing.
Yeah.
That was the opposite of that. It was like, oh, we need to tell in this section
how
alone.
do we get... I was putting the pieces together, beforehand with the motorcycle, because it's the only motorcycle you see in the movie so far, is the one that shoots Julian.
Sure.
And then he comes in on a
Yeah,
motorcycle and he's
You
like,
know
what the
pretty
fuck? And the
immediately.
other passenger is fucked up because you saw him get fucked up. And I was like, okay. And then, oh God, I don't know how to pronounce his name. What's it?
Chiwetel Ejiofor?
One more time slowly.
Chiwetel Ejiofor?
I've only read the name. I've never said it out loud. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Mm-hmm.
He plays a great villain.
He's awesome. And this is the first thing a lot of people saw him in.
Really?
Yeah.
He has this innate ability to be like so earnest and like you want to trust him, but you know you can't.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. 6 years later, he's in 12 Years a Slave. And I believe he won the Oscar for that. And so it's fascinating. So I knew him from this and I was just like, oh, I love that guy. And I hadn't really seen him in too much in between. But yeah, I think he does a great job of disarming you.
Yeah.
You kind of inherently trust him. And then when he's like shoving a gun in Charlie Hunnam's face.
Charlie Hunnam also did not recognize that guy at all. He did not get one single close up for me to like recognize that was Charlie Hunnam.
Which is sick, honestly.
But I love that.
Yeah.
This is like a very big cameos. The only other qualm that I was having in the movie thus far was that I don't think the actress who plays Key was particularly strong. It took me out of it a bit.
That's always been something that I struggled with, I think, from the beginning. It's when she starts to talk in the barn.
Yeah.
And she is kind of rushing through her dialogue
a little bit.
And it felt to me that, like, I don't know whether she was directed that way. Now she had only a few, I would say like 7, 8 credits for a while. And then she has worked consistently on TV for the past 15 years, 14 years, I think. And so she has clearly made a great career out of it, for herself. But yeah, I was having trouble with that initially too.
It's interesting too because her vocal quality is so rich.
Yeah.
I love her voice.
Me too.
And it almost sounds, and like I don't want this to sound like a diss. It sounds like she's in a video game. It sounds like she's a voice actress in a video game.
Yeah.
And especially when she was talking and the camera wasn't necessarily on her, because her voice is so clear and rich, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is what we're gonna do. And there wasn't necessarily a strong take on the character versus something like The Last of Us, who has a very strong personality in one direction, Ellie.
Yeah.
This is more of a naive, like hopeful, like young person.
Yeah, but I found it this time. I found her to be more than that. When she's like talking about how when she felt the baby kick and she wanted to get rid of it initially, and then she felt the baby kick and she felt it alive and she was alive, like, and some of the things that she's saying and the way she's reacting and the way that he's looking at her like, what are you talking about, with the way she wants to name the baby Froley. I was way more charmed than I was back when I first saw this movie. And I do agree. I think it's more of a directing thing. I think she was directed to be a certain way.
Yeah, I think
so
that
she
she just
speeds through
needed
a
to
lot
get
of
a
stuff.
little bit, one extra layer of character on there to really have me connect with it emotionally.
Sure.
Versus what I was doing was I was watching it as an actor and like a filmmaker and a film viewer, going like, I see what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily working.
Sure.
But I see it and I can appreciate it, and it's charming.
I found, especially that moment where she unveils and then she covers up and she's just standing there, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
I thought like I said, I was way more open to her this time through, and I don't know if that's just I've seen this movie so many times, and so now I think I'm just like, let me take off whatever preconceived notion that I have and view it as if for the first time. For some reason, this time specifically, I was like charmed for some reason. And
I also think like after she has the baby, I don't know if they shot in chronological order, probably not, but that whole sequence in the refugee camp, she's much more comfortable in her character.
Yeah.
And I believed it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
from that point forward.
That's interesting. There's another directed thing I think that I also had a problem with this time, which is so strange. You're talking about like the most inexperienced person in the cast. This was her second movie, the key actress, and my problem this time was with Julianne Moore, and it was a similar like, I'm just back here like this the whole time, and it felt like a direction thing. It felt like a very like, but I don't blame her at all. To me, I think a lot of those scenes are ADR'd. And
yeah.
I think,
They were. Yeah.
a huge
100%.
amount. The one on the bus in particular is like crazy ADR.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of her, I think because of the fact that they weren't using booms a lot of the time, because the camera had to move constantly, they may have tried to capture it in a lav, and
it just didn't work
all the time. So the ADR is all over the movie.
That's interesting, yeah.
And so that was my main thing. It wasn't with Julianne.
It was good ADR, but it was
very
ADR,
good ADR.
And it lined up
With
pretty
her
well.
in particular, I found it so muted at times because perhaps the ADR was
That's fair, yeah.
Where Clive's ADR felt very alive. And
I didn't notice his at all, so
Yeah,
who knows what happened there. Do you know why it's called Children of Men? Is that like a reference to something?
It is a reference to a biblical quote. So it's from Psalm 90 in the Bible. It's, thou turnest man to destruction and sayest, return ye children of men.
Say it again.
Thou turnest man to destruction and sayest, return ye children of men.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I mean, it was like just something interesting. It did feel like a reference to something classical.
Yeah.
Biblical. Which makes sense. Right. Yeah, this is kind of my favorite style of biblical story, which is showing what like hell on earth would be, and the hope of a Messiah, and the hope of like a savior.
Story or,
the nativity story for sure. I love that they even joke about it, where she was like, "I'm a virgin."
Yeah.
He was like, "What?" She goes, "Just kidding." Yeah.
She's like, I don't know. There were so many of them, like,
right?
Because I think she was,
yeah.
It was such a great moment. And the little moments are she's saying what she's going to name her baby, and at the end, obviously, her naming it.
So good. I knew it was like there's the rule of threes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I knew the third one was going to be
this girl's Bazooka.
Bazooka. She's a girl. Froly's a boy's name. I can't name her Froly. I was just getting used to Froly. I wrote down there has to be a rule in all movie making that if you have a pregnant person in the movie, they have to go into labor at the most inopportune time.
Oh, yeah, big time.
That is the number one rule of any. I would like one time for the pregnant person to not go into labor right when they don't need them to.
You'll never get it.
I know.
You'll never get it.
I know. I also really did enjoy the character of Miriam's whole story, including her death, which is off-screen implied, that she's going to just end up
heavily implied,
murdered along with the rest of the firing squad captives. But without her distracting that guard, they wouldn't get further than that point. It's like without the other people, without the what is her name, Marika? Without Marishka, they wouldn't get the boat, which wouldn't let them get out to the tomorrow. So it's just a lot of chance and a lot of luck and a lot of like help from people who don't get to come with you,
It's one of the most beautiful parts of the movie about the community and what, one person on a journey helping along each time.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to Mariska and she's like, no, show him, the baby. And she's like, oh. And then shows him, and those are the people who are going to help her through this next thing.
Exactly.
It's really wonderful. And then the moment, one of my favorite moments, and we'll go through it, but that, where everybody hears the crying and everybody turns and stops and stares.
Yeah. Stop shooting each other for 30
my
seconds.
Favorite.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's like the exact point of the story is look at what we'll do to each other when we have no hope, and then look what happens when we get a little sliver of hope again.
Yeah.
And we all stop fighting and start realizing what's important in this moment, which is everyone stop shooting. there is a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a future.
Mm-hmm.
Stop shooting.
Yeah.
And then immediately back to shooting.
I was like, this is
which is
so
also a great
well
commentary.
done. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then they go back to Jasper. They have that wonderful thing where they talk about faith and chance, and the
You think he's killed himself?
yeah, that was
And then
like,
I was
oh
like,
no.
I was like, he left the dog alive. The dog was gonna starve to death, and then he wakes up. I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch.
That's when I was like, because I wasn't sure how you were feeling about the movie, because I had noticed that you had started writing at times that I thought were like, okay, yeah, that's something she's not gonna like, which was the farm scene where, it's all heavy-handed that you were talking about when he comes back with the motorcycle, and so when that happened, I went, oh, okay, Kat's into it.
Yeah. No, I was like 99% into it. I did have a question. Why are they burning the cows?
So disease, famine, or not famine. What is it called? Yeah, disease. They're like
There's a cow disease.
I'm sure there's all sorts of types of diseases. Like, yeah.
Is it just supposed to be like biblical reference?
No, I truly think it's like a logical thing of like the cows had disease, so they had to burn them. Thing. So
it just seems like
reason why they
highlighted, and they don't really call it out in any like background way.
Or at the time the movie was coming out, I think there was that mad cow disease had just happened. Hand and foot was, I think, you could get from a cow. There was like, so I don't know if that's maybe the.
I didn't know if it was like part of the end of days. Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
I like that there was different sections breaking off from society, doing random stuff. The repenters,
and the redeemers,
the reformers, the fishes, the refugees. You break into clans and tribes when society breaks down. Yeah. Each one has an idea about
dating ain't what it used to be, amigo.
Why the world is ending and what we can do to save it, and it's like varied.
Yeah, I love that. I love that moment. He's just like, oh, are those the ones who kneel for repentance? No, those are the reformers. The repenters flagellate themselves for the sins of humanity.
Yeah.
He's like,
dating ain't what it used to be.
That's excellent. Yeah, there's little moments that, he goes, Julian's dad died and gotten shot, and he walks away from them to light his cigarette and just falls apart.
Yeah.
And
such a nice shot.
And even the moment where Jasper gets killed and he's just like, he's so angry at Miriam. He's so angry. And Key is like, what's okay? He's like, he's all right. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
There's little moments that I'd never noticed before. Obviously, I've noticed the breakdown, but that one in particular, I was like, oh, interesting. He's still trying to shield her. He's trying to protect her.
He's protecting her from reality right now because he knows she's heavily pregnant.
Yeah.
I wrote down, predicting he's going to die sacrificially. And this was before they got to the refugee camp. And it reminded me of, I just saw a flash of Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, right.
Where I'm like, I'm predicting that he goes the way that Joe goes, which is he succeeds, but he doesn't make it to the end with her. He just gets her there. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's how poetically like stories like this should go.
Yeah.
Because I always think about the balance of storytelling, or at least Western modern storytelling, which is there needs to be equal balance for a character and their end. So like he spent the last 20 years drinking himself into a stupor and like not doing any good for the world and just kind of like generally not caring if people get blown up at the coffee shop, all of that stuff after this death of his son. Then, he doesn't really have anyone after Julian
dies. The coffee
dies.
shop thing is interesting because he does care when he's just like, it was horrible. And so I think like he doesn't care about baby Diego, but that was terrible.
Right. Yeah. And so there's no way, I think for me as a story consumer, to be fully satisfied if he makes it to the end, because there's sort of a balance that needs to be rectified where he doesn't really have anyone left. This is his last duty as a living soul, is to accomplish this goal, and he does. And then he gets to almost like be at peace.
Yeah, I think it's a message to people out there who are either privileged, have lost hope, or do anything like that. It's just like, hey, get the fuck up and go do something about it. Like, go do something about it, even if you die, even if you lose your life. It's a really wonderful, you know, this idea
anti-nihilism.
Exactly. It's when there was this article on Vulture. I forgot who wrote it. It's really lovely, but they were talking to Quran after the 2016 election, and he was like, hey, like, how you feeling? Expecting him to be really pessimistic, and he's just like, no, feel great. And his whole thing was, at that point, he had come to this place where he was like, look, I'm absolutely pessimistic about the present, but I'm very optimistic about the future.
Yeah.
Which I think is, you know, especially right now, 8 years later, and feels like we've arrived right back to, you know, in a worse doorstep. And I just thought that was really interesting. He had a quote about Barack Obama and how people were disaffected by his presidency, and he's just like, the hope is something you create. He's like, people who voted and then sat on their asses and didn't do anything for the next 8 years, it was like, you were the problem. It's just like, he had, you know, sure, you voted for this thing, but you had to also put in some work.
Right.
And so that's what the movie is. It's this, you know, call to action almost.
Yeah, it's a nihilist becoming, what's the opposite of a nihilist? A purposeness-ist.
Optimist.
Not
quite an optimist, somewhere in the middle.
Sort of something like that. And that's the balance.
Yeah.
It's like he finally regains his faith.
Yeah.
And then dies.
Yeah. I'm really, all those things that you were talking about that are heavy-handed, you know, read to me as that this time.
The only other one that really like kind of bumped me was when they're in the building in the shootout, and Chiwetel is like, we need him, and she goes, she's a girl. He goes, a girl? I had a sister. It's like, okay, I get it. You have to do a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I get it. But like, okay.
Yeah.
But having said that, the message that they're trying to convey, which is interesting, I'm not sure how like good or bad it is, but it's interesting that a boy child is like a symbol of a revolution, and a girl child like gives him a little pause of like, it's like almost humanizes the baby again a little bit because he had a sister, because he had a loved one. And so he's like, oh, that's a baby. Like he's remembering that that's a baby, and he put her in the middle of a war zone for his own message. Like,
now, however heavy-handed or messed up that way of thinking is it very much digs with reality of like the way that we think of women as our sisters and our mothers. Like the way you get a man to care about a woman is to, you know what I mean? It's insane. However, I do find that an interesting point. It's almost like a woman is more peaceful.
A woman is a hope for the future. A woman brings life into the world.
Yeah.
A woman is like a promise of continued life. And that is different. A man can do so much, but they can't carry life.
Yeah.
And so, that's an interesting idea. I can bounce around in my head a little.
Yeah, it's nice. It also humanizes him in that
totally
small moment.
Yeah. And I think you get the satisfaction, again, balance of seeing him realize what he's done. Yeah. Essentially. Yeah. And not to the point where he's gonna let them go.
Or or that he's gonna live, you know.
No, he's definitely not gonna live.
Yeah.
But he does pause and realize kind of like he has a moment where he's like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
I put a baby in a shootout. I put the only baby in the world into a shootout.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The Mariska character, this time as well, I found that to be such a cool character, such a cool, that idea where Sid's like, what do you got there? And then they find out it's a baby, and she's just, no, bad.
He's a bad man. Yeah.
I found that to be really effective this time.
Also, the guy who plays Sid.
Yeah, he's awesome. Do you know his name?
Yeah, he's a Scottish actor.
I don't know his name.
He was in Westworld.
Oh.
He was in Harry Potter.
He's the billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's in Harry Potter as what?
A small character.
Okay. That's right. He's so good in Westworld.
So good. He plays evil so well.
Damn, he's really excellent.
I realized the reason that I think this also to me read like a video game is because of those long shots, because it almost feels like you're playing as Theo and he's running and then he cuts his foot on something and then he has to get new shoes and then he has to resource farm and then he has to steal keys out of a car. It's like all very tasks in a video game to get to the next
I think
checkpoint.
You hit on something that is actually not a lot of people talk about, and it's that idea that a film in 2006, and I don't know, this is right around the time some of these video games started doing it, so it could have been right before this, but you couldn't, a long take like that in film, that day that they were going to do the escape from the refugee, or him going to find her, that was 14 days to shoot. By day 12, they had enrolled cameras. On day 13,
What?
On day 13, they got 90 seconds into, this is Quran's account of it, got 90 seconds into the take. He cut because it wasn't right. They reset, but they couldn't reset in time. The day ended. 14th day, the cam op tripped. They reset. 5 hours later, they're right at the edge of where they could possibly shoot. And as he's going in the bus and the squibs go off and he's getting shot at by Charlie Hunnam, the squib hits the camera and he yelled cut. But because an explosion had just happened, they kept rolling. And after everything was done, Chivo, they all cut at the end and Chivo's dancing. And he's just like, what are you dancing for? The shot was ruined. And he's like, what are you talking about, you idiot? Like, it's perfect. It's amazing because of that.
Yeah, if the camera is the eye.
Yeah.
And there are bombs and bullets flying, and one happens to hit the camera. Like, what's a squib?
Squib is the blood pack.
Oh,
the
that!
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
It's very video gamey, but
that's
like
the
in
thing
an
that,
accidental way.
But
is
a lot of the
great.
time they add it
Totally, I
digitally
thought
now.
they did. I thought they added it digitally.
That's hilarious.
And that is crazy.
Yeah, so
because I forgot about that.
Actually, Chivo is quoted as saying, "You stupid, that was a miracle."
Yeah, because not only did it hit the lens in a way that looked intentional.
Yeah.
Like they put it in post. It wasn't covering like the main frame. It was off to the sides. It wasn't too much. It wasn't dripping. It was just like, it was useful.
So to bring it back to the video game thing is like, with that, all of that they have to survive to get something like that. In a video game, you don't have to cut. You can just, make manifest through the digital operating. It's really interesting that you said that as a concept, because a lot of the time that was more possible in a video game around this time. I guess it's the same time, but I found that to be interesting. Yeah. Yeah. This movie wraps after a grueling production, pre-production, everything.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Stacy Snyder, the CEO of Universal, left right around when the movie wrapped, and she was super hot behind the movie. I hope Stacy's a woman, because there are some Stacy males. But yeah, Stacy Snyder, she was behind the movie, and then she left, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with the movie. The movie was supposed to be like their end of year kind of like Oscar baity release, and the studio had no idea how to market it. They had a voiceover in the trailer of Clive Owen.
I hate those.
They added the song by Sigaros Halpepola, which is more of
that was a really famous song back then.
Yes, correct. And so they did that.
Sigaros was such a big band.
Movie band.
Yeah.
The poster was a golden fetus on a black background. The
Wild.
other poster was Clive Owen smirking with the caption, "He must protect our only hope." It was just like, and so the movie didn't pop off at all. It was nominated for 3 awards, but none of the major awards. And I think they put more of their resources. I can't remember what the movie that they put more resources into that year. But yeah. I just think that's like...
Yeah, after all of that work, if one person from the executive team
well,
doesn't have your back
behind you,
then it doesn't even get seen the right way. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, this is in 2016. It was labeled number 13 on the best films of the 21st century, ahead of Brokeback Mountain. No countries in like the top 10. But yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I loved it. I really did. I thought it was like super well done movie.
yeah.
2 thumbs up from me.
So Children of Men, you know what? Actually, we should do like a top 3 ranking of movies that you've seen from the podcast. What are your top 3 right now?
My gosh.
No pressure. This is not like honestly, I was expecting you to like not like this movie. Weirdly enough, I don't know
Interesting.
why. I felt like maybe some of the stuff was gonna feel a little too removed or something. I didn't know if it would hit emotionally.
No.
So I'm grateful that you did like it.
No, loved it.
Yeah.
Definitely top 3.
Yeah.
In my top 3 so far. I'm trying to think of other movies. Prisoners.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Django.
That's right.
I love a revenge movie. Yeah. I love a dystopia. I love a revenge movie. You know what I really don't love at all whatsoever? Disaster movies.
Oh.
Like a tsunami wiping out a town and like the survival of that. No.
Physical disaster movies.
Physical, yeah, I will never watch 127 Hours.
You always bring that up as a disaster movie. It's so
It's a
funny to me.
disaster. It's a disaster.
He gets his arm stuck in a boulder.
It's a disaster. Anything where they get caught in a blizzard, unless it's like the Donner Party, anything. Like, I can't handle things where it's like, I don't know. There's like a distinction between this, which is like a no hope for humanity disaster
Dystopian.
apocalypse,
Yeah.
and like a man who has to cut off his arm. One I can handle, one I cannot. That's it. I don't know.
What are your thoughts on Clive Owen?
Oh, so good.
Yeah, because
Back in the day, I used to get Clive Owen and Jude Law confused.
Sure. Yeah.
I have this thing, and probably a lot of people do, where I have like pairs of celebrities that I tend to get confused. One of them is Colin Farrell and Colin Firth.
Okay.
I can't remember whose name.
Right.
I always used to get Matthew McConaughey and Owen Wilson mixed up.
Sure.
Always. I used to
But
get...
now after True Detective, that doesn't happen.
No,
right?
I know who Matthew McConaughey is now.
I believe that though. It's like the more you see
Back
of
in
each
the
of their
day.
movies,
Yeah.
the more distinction.
Visually, it's like a visual thing. And I used to get Jude Law and Clive Owen mixed up. I really like Clive. I like Jude Law too, but I really like Clive Owen. He has this thing that I like in actors, which is like, I think Jude Law is too perfect looking. It's a little distracting.
Yeah.
And Clive Owen looks like a person.
But he's very
handsome.
A very handsome
but
person, yeah.
Still a person.
The thing is, like, yeah, he has a distinct ability to look like shit. Like, it's like one of his greatest qualities.
It's like, I
is
know
that
you smell. Holy shit. I know you haven't showered in days.
So
You
the
look
producers wanted Russell Crowe, George Clooney, or Matt Damon for that part.
No?
Uh,
How about no to all three?
Clive Owen had just got off doing Closer with Jude Law, I believe. I believe it's Natalie Portman, Jude Law, and someone else in that movie, someone really famous. And that was great. Yeah, Clive Owen, this happened. I was all in on Clive after this movie. And it's been good. Like, Clive Owen's had an amazing career. I really want to watch the Senor.
What?
Monsieur.
Senor. The senor.
Yeah, I just want to real quick. I forgot a little of these details. Is when they were shooting that bombing scene in the beginning of the movie, 2005. There was a bombing of Islamic radicals, killing 52 in London, 800 wounded. They had already had an agreement with the government, and the government was like, "You got 1 day," so they had 1 day to get that scene.
Fair.
And then they arrive in the morning to get that scene, and Alfonso Cuarón was known to be a perfectionist on this one in particular, and he was so upset. He got to set and he was like, "I'm not fucking shooting today," and they were like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, the cars are all wrong. They look too new," and so he was like, they were like, "Okay, well we can mess them up. We can do stuff in post," and he was like, "Which cars are ours?" And you're like, I don't know, it named like 30 cars. He started beating the shit out of them. And then halfway through the beating, they were like, no, just put stickers on them, the cars that you want to digitally messed up. So he put like all the stickers on every single car he could find. And so that turned into a multi-million-dollar shot.
Yeah, I feel like why I'm gonna need a lot of practice before I become a filmmaker, because like the disasters that happen every single day, like being a director is just putting out fires every single day, and then trying to get a good performance out of your actors and like a cohesive artistic environment.
Sure.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
No, it's good. It's good. Sometimes you do this, and sometimes you MacGyver it. Like you figure it out. Like that's why Ridley's like 8 cameras, baby, 8 cameras.
Yeah.
I thought that was phenomenal. Alfonso Cuarón, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. Roma is it's almost up there with Children of Men in my distinction. It's so good, and a really special movie, 3 hours long, black and white movie. Premiere.
Oh,
on
Get
Netflix.
Out.
No. Get Out.
Get Out's
the
also
other
in my
one?
top 3.
Top 3. So wait, you gotta knock
I got a
Children
top
of
4.
Men out.
No.
Oh, okay.
Wait. Get Out, Django,
You said
Children of Men,
Prisoners.
Prisoners gets knocked
Really?
just slightly below the top 3.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we had this conversation about almost 20 in, 18 in, or something
Yeah,
like that.
weird.
This is good. Yeah. Well, very cool.
Yeah,
Well,
we took
that
a
was-
little hiatus because of the state of the world, and we are back. So we're very excited for the rest of.
We had a lot going on, you know, and you did too. We know you and your families
So
were all
let's all
fighting
give
over
each other a little
politics.
grace.
And,
Let's try not to fight our family members across the Christmas table, and
or if you have to, you have to.
or if you
and-
have to, wrap your knuckles because you don't want to get hurt. All right.
But seriously, if you have never seen Children of Men, I highly recommend.
If you haven't seen Children of Men, what are you doing?
I know this
watching
podcast
this?
was crazy for you.
Stop. Go watch it.
Please go
You've
watch
already
it.
been spoiled.
It is so special, such a special movie, and every movie, you know, about this type of thing will pale in comparison, or will be influenced by Children of Men.
Totally.
So watch this movie.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.